Welcome back to our first tiebreaker game between Europe's Fnatic and the NALCS's Immortals. Now, Fnatic have managed to bounce back from a winless Week 1, while Immortals have gone 0-3 today. The winner of this game will, of course, advance to play against the Gigabyte Marines. The winner of that moves on to the quarterfinals. Lastly, important to note, nobody has ever qualified for quarterfinals after starting the tournament 0-3 in Week 1. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot as we're coming down to the wire. Who's going to take a shot at the GPL champions? Who's going to win this game? Deficio, let's start with you.
So we all know this is going to be like a 50-50. Like we've seen 2 games between the teams.
All right, so you know what? Let's just flip a
forth.
coin. We don't need them to play.
At this point, you almost could do that because it's so hard to predict which team actually makes the least mistakes when they're facing each other. I will, however, go with Fnatic. I'm afraid that the European fans will hate me if I'm jinxing them now. However, I value Rekkles over Cody Sun in these late game fights, and I think it will come down to the big late game fights, and Rekkles will be the big carry to win.
Looking at the AD carries, looking at those individual performances. Crumbs, which side of the fence are you on?
I'm taking Fnatic as well. Because...
My man!
There you go.
Woo!
We're countering the jinx.
All right, tell me why.
Because I actually think Azael's point about the mental resilience here is quite relevant. Losing 3 games in a row, and specifically for Cody Sun, I just don't see how when the meta relies on the AD carry to be stepping up to the plate, for him to actually deliver, that just has not been happening today at all. And Rekkles has been showing up, and so I think that that difference in bottom lane is going to be enough to put Fnatic over the
These guys are they're investing in the hot streak that Fnatic is on. What about you, Ezreal?
I still have some faith in Immortals. I think history will repeat itself. The 0-3 team will not get out of group here, and I think the reason
I
for
thought
me,
it was the 0-10 NA thing.
that will not repeat itself. Let's not go there, okay?
That's still possible.
That remains to be seen, Deficio, but I still have some faith in the solo laners here for Immortals. I think that Flame in particular has been having a very good tournament, and I don't think that we'll see Fnatic be able to match them in the top lane.
All right, well, there you have it. We got a split desk. Enough from us. Let's hand it over to Pastry, Vedius, and Kobe to get us into the games.
Thank you, Dash, and if you're just joining us here for World's 2017 group stage coverage, it is time for bonus games, Vedius.
It's NA versus EU, my fine gentlemen friends, and it feels like that the desk is slightly favoring Europe right now. I'm fascinated as to whether or not that momentum swing will be good enough for Fnatic to take the win, or if Immortals will be the team to get that clutch victory.
Yeah, it has been a very long day for Immortals. Started out in game number 1, and they've had losses back to back to back for themselves. So you do have to wonder about how they're going to regroup. That being said, their last game versus Longzhu did seem like their best played game overall. There were still mistakes definitely there, but it seems like that one had some improvements in it.
And I think for me, on both of these sides, the games they've split already in the group stage have been insane. Rekkles just barely giving away their game, making a mistake on Twitch in the very late game, and then a base race effectively that Immortals almost defended to try and maybe take the game away. But instead, we have 3 teams at 2 and 4. We have these 2 up first, and if the first 2 games are any indicator, this is going to be a doozy.
I think that the emphasis will be on the 2 AD carries. We saw how Cody Sun really struggled in a lot of those late game fights, and how Rekkles, he is one of the big carries, the one that Fnatic has been playing a lot around. So can Cody Sun step up to the plate and match the power level that Rekkles has been able to demonstrate? Or will Rekkles crack under the pressure? Will sOAZ be able to deal with a team that may look to try and invest resources into shutting him down? So many options on either side.
It's times like these that teams really do need to call on the veteran status here. sOAZ and Rekkles have been playing for so long and have been to international big stages so many times that's definitely going to be a valuable resource. Meanwhile, Pobelter on your screen doesn't seem too phased, and it would mean so much for Immortals as one of the newer organizations of the North American LCS. You know, they've already had unprecedented success for a new organization, you know, in the NALCS, but for them to also be able to get out of groups would be so big for them. And this isn't even for getting out of groups. This is just for a chance, a crack at the Marines. So whichever team even does come out ahead on this one still has a lot of work ahead of themselves.
But someone's world ends now. There's only one game
Gotta
left.
focus on the crybabies.
So I'm excited to see who makes it out, win or lose. I think we're going to have an exciting game.
I think, again, you have to look at both these teams for something that the opposite of the veterancy here between the 2. There are world rookies playing on both these teams, and I believe also actual rookies playing on one of the sides as well. So experiences, unfortunately for these teams, coupled with inexperience. And I love tiebreakers because You are truly tested when pushed to your limit in League of Legends. And this will be, like Vedia said, one of these teams' final tests.
So here we go. We're jumping into the final draft for one of these teams. Focus already from Fnatic onto Xmithie. He has been a pretty consistent performer throughout the tournament, but I feel like that his impact has not been as impactful as it was during the regular season of the LCS. I feel like looking at players like Flame, like Olleh, who have been big playmakers, are really the core part of Immortals' success so far at Worlds.
To me, it looks like Fnatic are just trying to funnel Xmithie onto that Ezreal jungle. They've seen him play it before, and it looks like they want him on one of those squishier champions to try and actually take advantage. Xmithie, though, he does have other options. He's also played the Rek'Sai, even though we've seen Broxah on that. Xmithie very well could steal that one away, because I don't think you want to use your first pick on jungle, even with all the bans used on it.
And this is interesting. Oh, all right. So there's the Xayah ban for Immortals, and Janna picked up with Rakan and Lulu available.
They're daring Olleh to take the Rakan, and that's one of the champions that we've talked about for this team especially. Olleh was such a big part of their initiations in the regular season, and the Ardent Sensor move has kind of taken him away from that role. We've seen him look a little bit uncomfortable, flashing forward on Lulu and glitter lances not really having huge impacts. But here we go. Immortals actually start taking away from Rekkles instead of the support role.
Now, when you think about the AD carries that are left up, Tristana is available. There's the hover of the jungle Ezreal that you were talking about. But I feel that this... so many things to talk about. Really good steal from Immortals, but now Fnatic likely just going to go onto the Tristana. There's the potential for that late game scaling advantage that we saw when you think back to RNG versus G2, and Cody Sun could become this insane late game threat. And what Immortals were probably hoping for was if they saw the Ezreal, then they could go for something like the Lee Sin, one of Broxah's most popular champions back when he first joined, but instead they're going for Rek'Sai, which is what he's brought out so far throughout this tournament.
Very simple but effective picks here for Fnatic. Rek'Sai, Trist, and Janna, as Ezreal does get locked in on the Immortals side. So I have to think we're waving bye-bye to Rakan at this point. I do not think Olleh will be granted that champion, given how high pressure this game is. But Immortals, what's their focus for this first ban?
Yeah, because they're looking fairly squishy at the moment. And I think that Fnatic, especially seeing how quickly they're locking in these champions, this is going according to plan for them. They were definitely expecting, like we talked about, to try and funnel Xmithie into this Ezreal pick. And now the mid lane bans come through. What is it going to be? Immortals will be able to have the first pick after the second bans do timeout.
Now, I feel like Immortals don't have to ban away Syndra. They could actually pick it away from Fnatic. We know that it's been a big comfort. Oh, my apologies. Yeah, you're right. I did miss the Syndra ban from earlier on. More focus going to be down onto the mid lane. Corki still available. Ryze, another big pick. Pobelter could look to go that way, especially with the LeBlanc and the Cassio both already banned out.
Well, certainly curious selection so far, as LeBlanc banned by IMT, taking that away from Caps.
Ryze and Corki. Who's going to be traded over here?
Because, yeah, if you ban the Ryze, they insta-lock Corki, and then you're kind of limited on your options.
And the thing is, Immortals' composition with Corki on it looks terrible. That is a very, very squishy, all backline. They would have to secure some sort of front line in the top lane for Flame, but it definitely would look extremely risky, especially into what Fnatic are showing already. So the Jace ban comes through, and they're willing to trade them.
Now remember, Nah and Trundle are the two top lane champions that we have seen come out from various top lanes throughout groups, and they could be a good answer to whatever tank sOAZ is likely to be put on. Cho'Gath would be fine in terms of frontline, but they could also go for the Maokai that he's brought out of Faramir.
I think a big key here, too, is crowd control, crowd control,
Oh!
crowd control. The Malzahar is actually good into Ryze. Oh, goodness. And that is going to give them even more crowd control. Let's see what Fnatic are going to round it out with.
And I love Malzahar. Like, there was a recent change to him in his ability to shred through tanks, because now his ultimate became flat damage. The amount of percentage health damage that he does dramatically decreases. And while he used to be a tank killer, now he's just great at locking down these really mobile targets. And when you already have a lot of CC in your composition with things like the Cho'Gath and the Janna, it just becomes great setup or pick potential that Fnatic can look to take advantage of.
Yeah, and a big theory here is, the range at which Ryze likes to work with. Malzahar can just put down the Voidlings and ult up with the rest of the people, team sitting around that they could try and take him there. Again, though, if they do go with this Trundle, that would be split push commitment here from Immortals. They are running fairly light on crowd control, and that means you're going to have good map movements, good side wave control in order to get your advantages, because you can't simply say, hey, it's time to force, and then have an easy force. That being said, Trundle Pillar has always been good in poke compositions, and it could combine well with, Ezreal.
And with the composition that Immortals have drafted, Ezreal really good at setting up early leads, and we've seen Xmithie do it. Think back to their game against Longju last week, where they just kept camping bottom lane. All he now needs to do is the same thing up top. Get Flame ahead in the early game, start to put the pressure on sOAZ, become this split push threat that Fnatic have no answer for.
And Xmithie is all year long been a gank-happy, very aggressive jungler in the NALCS, so makes sense that he's taking the more aggressive pick here in Ezreal, but Immortals' composition feels very difficult to execute properly. Fnatic maybe a little more straightforward.
Now, the last time we saw Caps play Malzahar was during the spring split of the regular season back in February, a long time ago since he picked up the champion, but clearly he's kept it in his wheelhouse, and now he's going to bring it out when Europe needs it the most.
I love me some Caps, I have to say. A bunch of unique picks. Is the kind of player that was so well regarded in Europe despite being a rookie entering the league this season, and like you said, at a final time, pulling out something like this. It's not Aurelion Sol, but instead it's Malzahar.
And it's going to be the little things that I'm looking for in this matchup. Is he going to be able to spawn Voidlings to block the Ryze Qs and kind of make it difficult for Pobelter to get out that damage? Or will the pressure crack? Because Immortals, like you guys are talking about, it's a fairly flimsy composition, and they do kind of need to get rolling early for it to take effect. Meanwhile, Fnatic here look pretty confident.
Their scaling is good, though. The Twitch is something you always have to respect, and something that we've seen a lot of with Immortal games is they go long. The reason why they did not get choice of side selection, the reason why they're here, is because they do have the longest game time in terms of their wins out of all of the teams participating in this three-way tie. So, Immortals can rely on that late game insurance, but it needs Cody Sun to step up.
Well, there's a lot on the line for our competitors at Worlds, and you can help raise the stakes with 25% of the proceeds from Championship, Ash, and World Skins being added to the prize pool, while another 25% will be donated to charity. But with that, it's time to move out into our first of two tiebreakers this evening. Gentlemen, I should be so lucky to have you here with me for this game number one.
You're welcome, Patient Time.
Welcome.
And look, if the stakes were high in the last game, they're even higher now.
All right, this is definitely a must-win game for both teams, goes without saying. Now, one of the things with Ezreal, okay, he gets it with a Rupture as we start this off.
Silence.
Ooh.
And they will get the flash away from Xmithie, but it looks like the action's not over yet.
Yeah, looks like a bit more happening here as Cap's gonna get knocked back up. The level 1 fight looking good.
We start the tiebreaker game off with a level 1 5-on-5 fight. Couple of flashes are blown here, and it is going to be the Ezreal, but we already saw even on Ezreal, if your flash is blown, still can go for those invades. Just makes it more risky.
And Caps, he was chunked out pretty low. I believe he's already been forced to use one of his health pots, so Pobelter will have that advantage over him. And the important thing to note about this matchup is Malzahar's early wave clear is very weak, and that will give a bit of pressure over to Pobelter.
Yeah, I mean, if you take your hand at this champion and haven't played him in a while, the CSing especially
is really hard.
It is definitely frustrating early on before you get some extra levels into your skills. So oftentimes, even at the pro level, we see the Malzahar players getting a little bit behind in CS early on. Pobelter actually doing a good job here, trying to push the wave in and make it more difficult for him.
Now he's likely going to max his Malefic Vision, his E, and once he gets around level 7, that's where the laning phase gets easier. We got to talk about this top lane.
What did we say? Xmithie going top early. Flame already in combat, and Xmithie coming up.
Also,
he goes for the trade, level 2 Ezreal.
Great rupture there from sOAZ, but the pillar is going to force the flash out. Tagged already by the red buff. Xmithie still going Flame. Flashes forward, and Immortals going to grab first blood.
Xmithie's going to take that one. Here comes Broxah, but they didn't actually sustain any damage, so don't know what he's going to try and get done here. Maybe a counter jungle or maybe a little bit of warding done. Xmithie's actually recalling with that gold, so Broxah could go mid if he wraps around.
Now TP has come back up top. Ezreal's come back to base, so he's not going to try and go for that repeat gank. But this is exactly what we were talking about. Early investment topside, get Flame ahead, and start putting that mental pressure down onto sOAZ. Try and put him in a situation where he starts to fall behind and doesn't know how to come back.
All right, we get a replay here, but you don't need too many replays to check out level 2 Ezreal ganks. They've been very, very common. And he just arcane shifts in with the red buff, applying the slow. That gives Flame the confidence to flash forward, landing extra slow there in the meantime with the chomp. And in the end, since the regeneration was coming through, Xmithie decided to take that kill, the last auto.
Well, it looks like going according to plan early on here for Immortals, but Broxah did stick around in the jungle for quite a while. A pretty heavy counter jungle here in Xmithie. He's actually back on the bot side of the map, so maybe something more brewing.
Yeah, after the early investment, Flame should have it communicated here as well that he needs to play fairly safe at the turret. He doesn't want to overextend. Fnatic, remember the success previously was all those visits from Broxah to get sOAZ snowballing on that Cho'Gath. And this time around, it's going to be imperative for Immortals that they don't let that happen. Meanwhile, Xmithie's bottom side, and he still has his red buff.
Guess who's at it again? Looks like Jesiz could be the target, but jumps on a Rekkles. Now going to try and apply the red buff, does land and forces the flash.
Fnatic, they're struggling in the early game right now. Xmithie doing exactly what he did against Longzhu, but spreading his pressure all across the map, getting a kill up top, forcing the flash down bot, and now he needs to maintain this pressure. Remember this composition, yes, it does have a good late game, but it's also very squishy, and being able to have these early leads, have that advantage over your opposition, is a great way to start off this game.
Definitely true. And remember with the Ezreal, oh, he actually waits around and the Raptors spawn right in front of him. So Xmithie with a secondary Raptor take here. Even though Ezreal doesn't love the Raptor camp early on, it's not that big of an issue. And especially since the sides have been split here, so it's kind of a necessary take for him to keep pace with Broxah. As Broxah now, after Scuttlecrab, can make a visit towards Pobelter.
Yeah, it looks like he pretty massively hates it. Actually took so much damage trying to kill the Raptors, but does secure it at least and keep up and even in jungle experience. Again, given how much ganking he has done early on in this game, it's important for him to keep pace. And Pobelter also still slightly ahead in this mid lane matchup. Did get off a recall to match Caps, and now is that tier charging up early. Pobelter actually back in, but bit of trade damage.
Yeah, Caps is able to get the Voidlings off, but even with the Voidling blocking the second Q there, still decent damage dealt by Pobelter in the trade. Meanwhile, a lot of vision below the mid lane here for Immortals. They've got Control Ward down here, and there's even some deep, Immortals, that's what I was saying. That is just here cleared out by Jesiz, but it does see the roam towards mid.
And I think Immortals are respecting the fact that Fnatic have this tendency to play around the bottom side of the map. They want to make sure that their Twitch does have a happy laning phase, and right now Cody Sun does have that pretty significant CS advantage, which is something that is much easier to ascertain when you're being paired up with that Lulu. So both AD carries going fairly even, and what you really want to be seeing from Rekkles is putting that Twitch under pressure. You want to try and punish that early laning phase, which, if you can't, is going to be great for Immortals come the mid-game 2-item spike.
Pretty funny for me to see Cody Sun actually doing the Rekkles against Rekkles. Daggers everywhere in the bot lane. 5 total, 2 versus 3 for Fnatic and IMT's ADs respectively. As we said, expecting some early Zeal items, wanting to get more of that wave clear and scale up, so certainly makes sense. Broxah in the meantime poking into mid lane from the top, but instead walking back to the jungle.
Keep your eyes on the teleports as well, because sOAZ is about to return, whereas Flame recently used his. This could mean that Fnatic could try to make some kind of play happen down bot around the dragon. It is an early Cloud Drake, but being able to get that early advantage and start the Rekkles snowball could be a great way for Fnatic to play.
And they just saw Xmithie down bottom side, so Fnatic know they have numbers on top side. Flame definitely going to be the target. And there's no teleport from Pobelter this game around, so he is 1v3.
Caps goes in, he's got the level 6, he flashes early with the flash on bar from Broxah is there. Caps, he's going to try and get himself a kill with the silence into the suppression. Caps, wonderful roam, gives sOAZ a kill.
Nice execution there from Fnatic, able to pull off the play. And with Immortals overloading on the bottom side for Fnatic just bails. They recall completely, and it's going to have to be Xmithie trying to answer with something else.
Now Pobelter will get a decent amount of damage down onto the middle lane. Ooh, good ultimate there from Xmithie to try and keep that top tower alive. But you do have the Voidlings, and it's past 5 minutes, so that top tower dies extremely quickly.
Yeah, they're in the race here, and even with the red buff Ezreal, here come Rekkles and Jesiz to defend the turret and try and delay. The first turret bonus probably going to be Fnatic.
Looks like that's the case. sOAZ gonna get the last hit and split a good chunk of gold between him and his mid laner. Immortals do answer, but the bonus gold went to Fnatic.
Question is, oh, they're not actually even transitioning into the Drake. People who don't care about the Cloud Drake enough. Here's a good charge here from Fnatic. Remember, they saw Xmithie down bottom, so they know this is a simple dive to pull off. Since Pobelter doesn't have teleport, there's no possible reinforcements. So they're all just going to blow flashes, jump right in there. You know, sOAZ is happy to tank the turret. He didn't even get, you know, much damage contributed to it. So
and he took the kill too.
Yeah.
He was just like right at the end. Hey, I tanked this tower. I have to take some of the credit here. So he's now sitting at 1-1-0.
Didn't get much damage, but it was the damage that mattered.
It did, exactly that. Now, Caps, he's going to be happy returning to mid lane, playing around top side rather than bot. A slight shift from Fnatic, but definitely one that works them pretty well up against the Gigabyte Marines. And now Xmithie, he's looking to try and continue that early pressure. Now level 6, just want to utilize the ultimate up top. And let's see what else he can do on the map.
Remember, sOAZ also teleport advantage after this. So they still have to be a bit cautious on bottom side, even though the Fnatic tower is down. That's why kind of Rekkles and Jesiz are just pushing in on the turret here, making use of the Tristana explosive shot. They know they actually have top laner advantage if sOAZ could back off far enough that it wouldn't be interrupted by a pillar.
I do like this vision, though, from Immortals. They put it just into
He's backing off
the river. They're looking for a play.
Oh, Cody gets knocked by a tornado. Might take a little too much damage. Rekkles with a busted shot forces the barrier out of Cody.
You can tell they're setting up for it as sOAZ on your mini-map, backed all the way off to his turret there. That's kind of the indicator for the possibility of one of those plays being set up. And that was very close to being a 5-man bottom with Caps rotating over, but the defense is there for the meantime.
Now, look in the middle lane, because Caps, he's reached the level 8 mark. We talked about how level 7 is where things get a lot easier for Caps because he has so many points in his E. Now that he's got an extra point in his Q as well, that wave clear becomes impossible for Pobelter to deal with. So he's the one that's always forced under his tower, and Caps will have priority on the roams. He will have more windows available. Just look at how he's going to clear out this minion wave, and then he's going to move into the jungle, and Immortals always have to respect when Caps could show up.
Goes back as well, so Caps could make it 2 for 2 on successful roams here in this game. Just a little too much work from all the dots there from Malzahar, and Caps again jukes out of vision. Pobelter going to try and keep tracking him, gets a control ward down onto the left side of mid, but Immortals being forced kind of far back here in these lanes. Flame still salvaging his top lane, although he does now have the teleport back up. We're really just looking for kind of that first big point of tension. Cody has gone back, has his rune-ins to get things farming, but Rekkles probably doing the flat AD BF sword pickaxe into his own kind of farming wave clear item. So things may continue to be a bit slower here up towards the 20-minute mark.
He doesn't need boots. He's got a Janna. As long as he's just running after her, making sure that Jez is always in front of him, he's going to be gliding like a plane.
That's like saying you don't need attack damage because he's got a Janna. She can give you a shield. You don't need health because you have a Janna. She'll give you
all those things.
She'll give you everything.
I think it's funny because I was going to say Fnatic loves to prioritize Rekkles in the draft. I saw the general like, oh, that's interesting. But realistically, that is prioritizing Rekkles in the draft.
It's honestly why she's so good right now. She does give so many different stats like that. Here goes Immortals starting up the Cloud Drake though, and that will give them even more move speed, at least out of combat. Broxah going to try and answer with the Rift Herald over here. Should be easy for him, you know, as sOAZ could just mosey on down if they needed any extra support with the Cho'Gath.
Now it looks like sOAZ is working towards that Righteous Glory, so Fnatic have that engage option, and we got to think about that because when you look at both sides, it's not actually a lot of engage. You don't think of something like the Gragas, like the Sejuani, they were all banned out, so you're going to have to rely on sOAZ flanks, you're going to have to rely on good pillars from Flame, and there's just going to be a lot of kiting and back and forth and just individuals either being out of position and relying on big objectives to force these fights.
That's why we keep talking about how difficult this composition for Immortals would be to pull off. They have to play around disengaging, throwing up these pillars. Right now, they're going for Caps, though.
Cody sneaking in. Pobelter flushes in, look for the root. Oh, that passive!
It stays on a bit longer there, and he's able to block that CC, so Flash from Pobelter gets nothing.
Trade of summoner spells in the middle lane. Neither mid have them available now. Cody Sun tries to make a play in mid, and that gives a window for Rekkles and Jesiz to push up bot, and they could get a fair amount of damage onto that tower.
One of the reasons why you really like that champion, extra spell shield comes in super handy when people are trying to initiate on you.
This is a Fnatic brush. This is the sneak in the brush, sit and wait for the enemy team to overextend, but Immortals, they're going to go back themselves, assuming that Rekkles and Jesiz have already gone back.
It's an interesting term how it's evolved to people just say any brush
if they're in the brush,
is a Fnatic brush if they're in it, but originally I remember it being this one super far up by the secondary turret in the side lane. That was the original Fnatic push from like 6 years ago.
Yeah, back when they used to run the double TP Lissandra top kind of days. So definitely been taken slightly out of context, but I had 2 Fnatic members in a brush. I'm going to call it that.
sOAZ was on that team when they were doing it.
Uncle technically correct on that one, Benny.
Or was he?
As Cavs still cleaning things out. I mean, it is important to note that Fnatic are one of the most experienced League of Legends teams in the game's history. I mean, we have 2 teams that have never been to Worlds before in this set of tiebreakers, and Fnatic, the veterans here, trying to continue an incredible run of form here in week 2.
And many European fans thought that Fnatic would be the first seed coming into Worlds. They had an 11-2 record during the regular season. They had extremely high expectations, and then they were upset during playoffs. They had to fight their way through the gauntlet. And for Immortals, it was a bit of a surprise because they had Xmithie join the roster. Expectations were fairly low, and then they had a very impressive season.
Yeah, the reason expectations were fairly low is because of their spring split performance, but they completely turned it around. Xmithie coming in. Also should be talked about is Song and the coaching that really helped out Immortals as far as their decisiveness. But right now, the Rift Herald is making quick work of the first outer turret in mid lane for Immortals, and Fnatic push ahead in gold.
Void wants to party there, does net Fnatic the mid outer turret. Now up by 1 is, again, the pace of this game. Kind of, you can feel the weight of a tiebreaker game on these 2 teams.
I'm fascinated by how many of these fights will actually start because, you know, we talked about the engages earlier on, but right now I think both teams are pretty happy to scale. Malzahar's not exactly a weak late game champion. He used to be much stronger with his percentage health damage, but now Immortals looking for a pick.
Cody Sun looking for something here, but Pobelter could be the first pick off. Caps lets the ultimate rip. Broxah lines up the knockup there, and silence 2 Jazz. Caps nails the kill.
Extremely easy setup for Caps. Pobelter couldn't do anything because he had no flash. He was silenced up after the ultimate, and the chain CC from Broxah will get the Fnatic mid laner his first kill of the game.
Pobelter had his eyes on bottom lane there, trying to run down to the play. But again, like we emphasize in Champion Select, it's so much easier when you have these crowd control abilities at your disposal. Very easy for just point and click there. Nice chain from Caps and Broxah to get that kill.
And after Pobelter's death, Cody Sun had to move up to mid to clear out the wave. And that's going to give a window for Fnatic to get this bot tower as Cody Sun comes up in step.
No ulti, but he actually dukes the tornado. Rekkles maybe overstays his welcome. Cody wants it. Will not flash forward. Nice silence from Caps to cover the aggression.
Love the play there from Cody. Keeps his tower alive. Doesn't allow Fnatic to snowball the gold lead any further. While it is slightly in the European squad's favor, this is how they were able to build that slight lead.
Yeah, Pobelter had his eyes on bottom lane and no vision of this ledge over here. So Caps and Broxah, as we said, easily able to just jump right over, secure themselves some extra gold.
Silence is a mage's worst enemy. The inability to do anything, because your basic attacks don't do much. Like, you're entirely reliant on your spells, and if you don't have them available, you end up just getting locked out.
Suppression, knockup, those are also pretty annoying to deal with, and 100% to 0 is a rough life.
Yeah. Fortunately for Pobelter, no available counterplay in that situation. And Immortals.
QSS. QSS is how you get it.
In that situation.
Yeah, you're correct.
I mean, and that is actually something worth highlighting. We haven't seen Malzahar in quite a while, and he was a support for a long time when he was kind of in vogue, but you do need to get out of the pressure, and the only way you could do that is with a QSS, which feels real awkward for Ryze.
It's one of those debates where by having a Malzahar in the game, you can force your opponent into building a QSS. Yes, that's great, but in the late game, when 4 out of the 5 members all have QSSs, now Malzahar doesn't really have a target that he can focus down on, and his ultimate becomes less and less reliable as the game progresses.
But then all these, mages and stuff are using an item slot on something that can only be upgraded for attack damage. Uh-oh.
Gonna help the silence problem with the BM sword behind the Mercurial Scimitars. Looks like teams are lined up for this Infernal Drake. Fnatic, though, first to the play.
Yeah, looks like they're going to be able to get this one. Infernal Drake burned down, and they teleport in behind him.
But the pillar actually from Flame tries to knock down Caps, so sOAZ, he wants more for his team. Righteous Glory in, silence on the Cody Sun. He jukes away from the Rupture, but is forced to flash the wall. Rekkles, rocket jumps towards IMT, and no kills are forthcoming.
Gonna be able to hold on to this one as well for Fnatic. Infernal Drake picked up. They also blew the flash on as well. Olleh Cody Sun, so the back line definitely very vulnerable for Immortals right now. And remember, the only kind of defense they have in the front line is these pillars going up to try and kite around, but it's going to be very difficult with all the things that Fnatic are trying to throw at them.
The thing is, though, we've been looking so much at the bottom lane that we have not been paying attention to Flame, who's been quietly farming up in the top lane. 30 CS advantage now onto sOAZ. He's building himself up into this pretty threatening split pusher later into the game.
Well, he's going to have to get started quickly.
Gonna have to maybe make a trade. Fnatic take the bottom out of Flame. Is going to try and equalize here. Should be able to chomp this one down. sOAZ will not make it in time with the wave. More than enough for Flame here. And this is a pretty good picture of what the game is going to look like as it develops. Flame is going to want to have as much side lane time as he can, and Fnatic are just going to try and force.
Exactly that. They're going to try and force Immortals to group up as a 5-man, whereas Immortals are trying to separate Fnatic and keep them in their individual side lanes. Send Pobelter down bot, keep Flame up top, play this 1-3-1 style, and make sure that Caps is separated from the rest of his team so that they can use Cody Sun to try and find these picks around the map. Immortals and Fnatic both have ways they want to play, but it's all about who can get that vision down and be the first one to set up for objectives to then force their way of playing.
Well, again, the game develops as we hit almost 20 minutes. QSS now done for Pobelter, but we'll check in back with the bot laners. There's 2 items done for Rekkles. Very close in gold between the 2 marksmen, but Cody is a little further away, in part thanks to his boots to purchase, but not too far away from finishing his second major item, of course, being the Infinity Edge as well. So we're getting team fight ready if the teams want to have some sort of a scuffle, but again, the pace of this game, very deliberate, certainly echoes the stakes in this match.
Top lane, sOAZ was waiting in a brush, and now he's charging at Cody Sun.
Oh no, oh no. Broxah is going to land the wild grip, maybe not enough. The execute from Broxah not there, but the feast not needed. Broxah grabs the kill, and now Caps in onto Olleh. Look at the silence him. That's so much damage from this Malzahar. The shield not there. Caps snipes Olleh with a Q.
Fnatic able to take advantage here. They kill off that bottom lane without flashes, and they're around Baron now.
Remember the play that Fnatic tried to force earlier, forced both those Summoner spells. Smite is available for Xmithie. He is in the vicinity, and I don't think he wants to give this one away for free.
15 seconds to feast on sOAZ. Pobelter trying to shove down me, but Caps will match him. This should be Baron going over to Fnatic. Immortals do not contest.
It's just so dangerous for Immortals. Fnatic have all of this CC. They're waiting, by the way, for Baron buff so that the respawn... Actually,
I think they just wanted to give Cho a feast stack.
Okay, the
Because
cooldown on his ultimate. I was like, oh, maybe they're waiting for someone to revive. Wait, no one died on their team.
Yep, we can see exactly how Fnatic were able to make this play. They saw Cody Sun trying to catch the wave. They knew he had no flash. sOAZ rushing the righteous glory allowed them to get the collapse. And unfortunately for Olleh, he couldn't provide enough return.
And this is the reason why we talked about with the outer turrets going down for Immortals. It's such a dangerous game. They're the team that's has to run away, has to kite, and Fnatic are the ones with the more options because they have all of these tools to pick people off. Really good use there for Fnatic to capitalize. They actually got both of the kills off of that, and a very, very good Baron for them to push up bottom side now.
And again, as Fnatic kind of move as a 5-man unit, sieging with this Baron buff, Caps has had an incredible game so far. 2-0-1 on the Malzahar. Didn't even use his ultimate to kill Olleh. Was so confident in his play, but now he lets the rip in onto Flame. Big silence there is also. Tornado's also going to wombo combo it in. But Cody unleashes his ultimate on the other side, but Fnatic not deterred, will keep sieging.
Fnatic, they get a lot of damage down onto Flame, but he's being forced to group. Remember that Immortals want to keep Fnatic apart. Their true strength comes when they're a 5-man unit, and they can utilize the item spikes that they've now picked up for themselves.
Flame's going back to the fountain right now, so there is a small window for Fnatic to push in and try and bully this turret down. Looks like they'll take that and just break the window.
IMT concede the objective. Figure it's not worth fighting over that tier 2, but now round 2 is Fnatic. Still got 2 minutes left with his Baron.
Feel very confident to continue this siege. Immortals, they have no answer. Remember, they have no engage, and Fnatic are just walking into their base.
Exactly, no front line here. The ultimate was already used from Flame when he got Mal's ultimate, so there you go. Nice inhibitor for Fnatic, and they are going to be very happy with those rewards. So quick and easy for them to take afterwards, Baron recall will let them spend all the cash as well.
And you have to go back to the draft. Remember how many jungle bans we saw coming out from Fnatic. There was the Jarvan, the Sejuani, the Gragas. So many engage options were taken off of Xmithie. And coming into World's group stages, I felt like Xmithie and Olleh were two of the key initiators for this squad. They were the people that you relied on to start the fights. You take them off that, and you can see Immortals are really struggling in this mid-game point.
Well, we've already talked about, again, the stakes of this match, but there's also something else potentially on the line. No team at Worlds has ever qualified after going 0-3 in week 1, and no team at Worlds has ever qualified after going 0-3 in week 2. So there is the chance for Fnatic or Immortals to do something that has never been done at Worlds, but that will come, if at all, in our next match. But right now, Fnatic are firmly in the driver's seat.
And the problem with a split push comp when you're this far behind is that your 4-man squad can't even slow down the other 5-man squad that's coming to take down your turrets. And Fnatic could even threaten tower dive while Flame is pushing on the side lane. You see, Flame couldn't even push more than one wave there in the time it took Fnatic to take a turret. Always forced back to base, and they're just going to have to hope for some big outplays.
Now there's 20 seconds left on the Baron. Fnatic, they will run that buff out, but they still feel confident enough to keep the push on. They're going to extend their vision deeper, steal away some of these camps, but they're not afraid of Immortals when there is no threat of engage coming out from the North American squad.
And if anyone from Immortals puts a toe out of line with maybe the exception of Pobelter, Captain's ulti will just lock them down. There's Cody, way too far forward to walk with, not nearly enough, but the barrier will actually save him. sOAZ taking it on for maybe a little too long, but they still bust through the top lane.
No one from Immortals can step up here, and they're just waiting around to watch the inhibitor die.
Fnatic feeling good. They get themselves their second inhibitor of the game 24 minutes in. This is such a different performance from what we've seen throughout the entire group stages. Fnatic and Immortals have had such nail-biter games, but the difference in preparation has given Fnatic the edge.
7,000 gold ahead for Fnatic after almost 4,500 gold Baron power play. 2 inhibs cracked in top and bot lane, and now the mid lane left with an Ocean Drake as a bit of an additional objective if Fnatic would like it. They have complete control of the map right now, and it's showing.
Things become harder and harder for Immortals. They're going to have to rely on Fnatic mispositioning around an objective, overcommitting for a Baron, and maybe getting it stolen away. But even then, you're just looking at this Twitch and hoping that he can get to a late game point where he can maybe turn things around.
Yeah, it looks like Fnatic can't wait for their rematch with the Gigabyte Marines, as we're only 25.5 minutes into the game, and they've already destroyed the majority of the Immortals base. Now, the only area left is straight up mid lane.
Fnatic, of course, not wasting any time. Able to push through here with plenty of items just across all of their champions. And this turret, not particularly defendable. Flame has 2 different super minion waves to worry about. And every bit of poke from Caps is doing an absurd amount of damage.
Huge silence onto Cody Sun. He wanted to try and force something there, but instead he's going to get forced back, getting relatively low. And look at the Malefic Vision on Pobelter.
Yeah, it's so hard to see the opening for Immortals to try and make the comeback play. And it has to be some mistake here from Fnatic. You know, there is a lot of damage on Immortals that they could punish a mistake if one presented itself, but there are just so few options.
Well, turret number 3 in the inhib cycle will maybe look to go down here. TP from sOAZ back to lock up Xmithie and buy a bit more time. He's actually flanking as he chunks Xmithie to 50% health. The Rupture not quite there, but they break the turret. Now, 1 inhibitor left for Fnatic to take, but they'll play it a bit more patiently.
I thought that they would try and reset for Baron, but they've actually got their eyes on the inhibitor. They feel strong enough to commit. Here comes Flame with the pillar.
Have to be something here for IMT, but Fnatic again just playing out their composition as they drew it up in the draft. This inhib is going to fall down. You just cannot face check this Malzahar and Cho'Gath, and Rekkles is more than enough insurance for these fights. Cody lets it go with the ultimate. Flash fill there from Flame, trying to start something. The root onto Caps is not enough damage as sOAZ again moves back through. Rekkles getting aggressive, jumps forward towards the Immortals, and sOAZ just eats Olleh, gets the kill. Cody caught by a Rupture. That's
going to be it. Fnatic push through, take down the Nexus, and look to make world's history as they go up against once more the Gigabyte Marines.
Look at the smiles on Fnatic faces. They defy expectations. They're going to take down Immortals and keep their quarterfinal hopes alive.
Only one left there as the Nexus goes down. Immortals will beat it due to the world's group stage of Fnatic. Have one more game to play.
Very clean game overall from Fnatic. You look at the early draft and there is so much pressure on Xmithie to snowball the top lane, keep the bottom lane from falling behind. He does all these things, but then one big play from Fnatic in the top side where they kill Cody Sun, they kill Olleh without their flashes, very quickly translates into a Baron, and then there's nothing that Immortals can do to stop the relentless pressure from Fnatic.
Inexperience maybe showing a bit there from Immortals. For their first trip, the world's a valiant effort here in Group B, but they will fall to the experience and honestly poise at Fnatic, who picked themselves all the way back up from probably underground, given how poorly their first week went. And unfortunately for NA, the curse of week 2 continues as Immortals again say goodbye to the group stage for this Worlds.
Yep, they were able to make it here to Worlds and have a good opening week, but fall down here in week number 2, as many North American teams have fallen prey to. Now, though, we get to look forward to some more Marines play. Gigabyte Marines versus Fnatic. This is going to be an exciting tiebreaker because these two teams have been neck and neck in this group.
And both teams vying for that opportunity to make it to the quarterfinals. No one really expected them. Gigabyte Marines were expected to finish bottom, maybe even above Fnatic by many analysts. And now they have that one opportunity, just one more game could get them into that quarterfinal.
Certainly rip the pick'ems at this stage, but to get their thoughts on Fnatic's win, let's head over to Dash and the analysts.
Thank you very much, Pastry Time. Immortals, unfortunately, will be headed home with a 2-5 record after going 0-4 here in week 2.
Boom.
Yeah, basically, but Fnatic keeping the dream alive, winning 3 of 4 so far today. Only have to put one more together. You pointed it out. Caps walking by the camera, holding that up, calling it out. Just one more, baby, against the Gigabyte Marines to make history. Remember, to make history, to be the first team to go 0-3 in week 1 and make it out. It would be a feat.
It'd be an absolute miracle run. Before the show, we're like, what are the chances of Fnatic making it out of groups? And we're like, negative.
We were talking 0-6, you know. We were like, okay. But like, that's the thing. Like, so much respect for this team now because they were done. And mentally, this team is not very strong. Like, when they start losing games, it falls apart, and they're not really picking themselves up. They lose to Longshoot at 0-4 already then, and then they managed to turn around. Like, very impressive. And the confidence boost they needed from, well, I want to remind everyone, Immortals going into the bot lane in that game earlier today, pushing that tower and Cody Sun with the flash and all those mistakes that happened. That gave the win over to Fnatic. They needed to do what they're doing now.
Right. At any point during this day, Immortals could have taken control of their own destiny and moved themselves forward. Fnatic has done everything in their power when it was their turn to make something happen, and they've done it. What speaks to me, though, is the adjustments that Fnatic has made between weeks 1 and 2. If I'm going to call out a difference between the NA squad and the EU squad, is that Fnatic came out with different strategies this week. Most notably in this game, banning out the tanks for Xmithie. Let's get him back on to an early aggressive jungler that doesn't have a lot of team fighting presence, and then the Malzahar pick of all things.
And I mean, the Malzahar pick is an adaptation. One thing I think other teams should be attacking perhaps is this Rek'Sai, which has been the same in every single game, and it feels like Fnatic is somewhat dependent upon it for that early aggression, for Broxah to be proactive, but I think that the Malzahar made a lot of sense. It's a very strong pick. You're able to pull off these sorts of plays, roaming up topside, get an easy dive, and you have to say the Flame definitely misplayed this dive. Maybe could have just tried to stay under the turret, try to clear out a wave.
Well, I think the Malzahar is not just important for Fnatic right now, but for the mental state that these teams are in because of how easy it is to execute. You point, you click, you get the champion deleted. And against the Marines that have already shown falter, against Fnatic in their second game, against Immortals right now that clearly are just demoralized mentally, it's a fantastic pick.
And those 2 last kills was really what won the game for Fnatic. That gets them the Baron. And when you're playing this split push style comp with an Ezreal jungle, you have no real engage. The way that you win the game is by split pushing, and Trundle cannot do that against a Baron-empowered team. That enabled Fnatic to so easily start taking the inhibitors, and the game is done as soon as you lose that Baron.
And that's one of the things I also really liked about Malzahar is when the enemy team have no backline threat, no one touches Malzahar. He deals a ton of damage in team fights. Typically, his problem is, when he's ulting, he's stunning himself. He's standing there dealing damage against one guy, and there are 2 or 3 other champions kind of attacking him and most likely killing him.
And you know what? How he also nullifies Ezreal? You got Voidlings blocking the way for the Mystic shots.
Against Ryze Q as well, baby.
How is he actually going to hit A? So the Malzahar pick gets to be even more genius than
But
we
I'm
thought.
even that much more intrigued now to see what Fnatic has planned for Gigabyte Marines
Aurelion Soul!
round number 3 here,
Marines
right?
have.
Gigabytes have chosen blue side. I want to talk about this game a bit because where Fnatic focused out the tank junglers against Xmithie, you can't do that against Levi. We saw earlier different teams trying to attack his jungle pool and get him off of the carries, but there's just too many.
Well, for the majority of the day, the Marines have already played blue side. So 2 blues, 1 red side. So it makes sense for them to pick the side that they've most been comfortable with. Also, first rotationing maybe the Janna again. And blue side does offer the ability to target ban anybody specifically. And I do think you can go on Broxah and just get rid of these early game champions. Clearly, it has been a linchpin for Fnatic. So maybe strike there.
And for me, for Fnatic, they should be worried less about what Gigabyte Marines are doing and more about getting a well-balanced composition that fits their playstyle. Play your own game, play it measured, invade at level 1, figure out what the Marines are doing. If you can do that, doesn't matter what the Marines are going to bring out. You could have a strong game.
We'll have more time to talk on the other side of the break, rather. As we speak, the Gigabyte Marines and Fnatic prepare for a monumental game with the winner advancing to the quarterfinals. Don't miss it.
Great rupture there from sOAZ, but the pillar is going to force the flash out. Tagged already by the red buff. Xmithie still going flame. Flash just forward, and Immortals going to grab first blood. Cat lets the ultimate rip. Broxah lines up the knockup there, and silent 2 Jazz. Cat nails the kill.
I'm ghosting. I'm running through here. Yeah, I'm gonna jump over. We're behind them. Lulu set as well. I don't want to ult it. I don't want to ult it. We can burn after, maybe.
sOAZ just eats Olleh, gets the kill. Cody caught by a rupture. That's going to be it. Fnatic push through, take down the Nexus, and look to make world's history.
Nice, guys. One more game.